Listen, the more you learn, the more you earn. Welcome back to another YouTube video. My name is Sabali Freeman. Today, I'm going to drop another video, and we're going to be pretty much talking about being mindful when picking your classes and scheduling out your classes. I really want to make this video because, you know, when you're picking out your classes, sometimes I don't think a lot of students realize that, they're taking a multitude of extremely difficult classes at once. And you really just need to be mindful when you're scheduling out your semester and just pick your classes wisely, because, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You don't want to do too much to the point where you're dropping classes, withdrawing classes, failing classes. You don't want to really be putting yourself through that. And a lot of students go through that. But I think a lot of students don't realize that that stuff can be avoided if you are conscious when you're picking your classes. And a lot of students aren't. And this last semester, I was one of those students that, just really wasn't conscious about, my schedule, just kind of taking whatever, um, thinking, hey, I just got to do this. And not really paying attention to, the type of classes that I'm taking and how much time, energy, and effort these classes are going to take to succeed, and you have to pay attention to that. And so first and foremost, when it comes to picking your classes, be careful with what your counselors try to give you or try to say you got to take, or whatever. Just be mindful and continue to think for yourself. I think that's the one thing that a lot of people need to realize is you got to continue to think for yourself. A lot of these counselors, they may have went to college, but who knows what they got their degree in, what they did, what they took. A lot of these counselors, they didn't take these loads that they're trying to give you. So you just got to be careful when they're giving you things and realize just because they're suggesting that you take these classes, you can still pick whatever order you want to take certain class and how many classes hour you want to take. You still have the ability to do that. So don't let a counselor give you something and let that just be the end all be all. Prime example, um, I had last fall, I took a molecular and cellular biology, which was a 300 level biology class. And, that's kind of what my counselor had drew up for me that semester. And I was taking that with organic chemistry one in college algebra. And, I did not take any introductory biology classes, any lower level biology classes. And, that upper division biology class was extremely difficult. It was extremely hard, very challenging. And, I'm taking a lower division one next fall, is molecules to cell, which is a precursor to that class. And I realized, like, I had no business taking that upper division class, with no foundation of biology. I was set up to fail in that class. I passed with a B plus, but I could have failed, in that class because that class is very difficult. I didn't know any of the terminology, what DNA stands for, ribose nucleic acid. I didn't know none of that. You know what I'm saying? Phosphate sugar backbones. I didn't know none of that. You know what I'm saying? So everything was foreign. The terminology was foreign. The class was fast paced, content heavy, and not only that, but you needed to know how to apply these things you were learning. It wasn't just a memorization class. So it was extremely difficult. You know what I'm saying? I had no business taking that class. I shouldn't have took that class. But I wasn't thinking. And nobody told me, hey, no, go take the lower division one first before you take that, because that class is gonna be too much. Nobody told me that. And, so that's the first thing is, don't allow, a counselor to just give you anything. Still think for yourself, think through it, ask other people, ask other students, hey, this is what I'm taking. What do you think? You know what I'm saying about this course load? Do you think I should drop a class, replace it with something else? Like, what do you think? Like, just continue to think, ask questions, and don't just do anything that the counselor gives you. Second thing is pay attention to the numbers, right? 300, 400C, 2101, 1110. That stuff matters, right? A 1110 class to to a 2103 class is completely different, right? When you jump up that one digit from a 1 to 2, that's going to change everything. That's going to change how much you about to get worked, how hard that class is about to be. A 300 level class, a 400 level class, like that is going to determine how hard you is about to get worked. The higher that number, the more work you're going to have to put in. So pay attention to that. Don't just think that they're just putting numbers there just because. Those numbers are indicating how hard that class is about to be. I didn't know to pay attention to that. I didn't really start paying attention to that until this semester. After this semester, I realized, okay, these numbers matter. And, just be careful. Because this spring I had took organic chemistry, genetics, and a principles of biology class, organisms to ecosystems. And, this semester was very challenging because I was taking two upper division STEM courses with two level biology, principles of biology class. And genetics, that's not an easy class. Um, Not only is it content heavy, but you have to actually apply what you're learning to these exams. You know what I'm saying? They're not just asking you things to see your memorization, but do you understand this? Do you understand how this gene works? Do you understand what's going to happen if a mutation happens in this gene? If lactose is present, if fructose is not present? Like, you really have to put in so much time and effort and energy to be able to succeed in a class like that. And when you're taking a class like that paired with organic chemistry too, which I mean, everybody know that class is a monster. And you're taking it with another STEM class and you're doing two labs on top of that, like you have to really realize that there's only 24 hours in a day and you can only get so much done. And, when you're taking these classes are going to require a certain amount of work ethic from you to be able to succeed in that class. It's going to require you to put in X amount of hours to be successful, and you have to be committed to that. And so all I'm really trying to say is just be careful when you're stacking classes. Yes, there are some students that um, are just on that level where they can take multiple upper division classes and get straight A's. They're just that determined. They're that dedicated. They have a different motivation, right? But you have to figure out again, where your dedication is. You have to figure out your why. You have to figure out, what kind of student you're trying to be and what you're trying to accomplish, and know what you can and can't handle. After this semester, I realized, like, okay, I can do two hard classes, but I can't do more than two extremely hard classes because that third class, that is what's making or breaking me. That is the tipping point for me. You know what I'm saying? Like that third class, I just can't divide my energy evenly between these three classes and get A's. You know what I'm saying? Like something's just going to give. Um, so that's just what I realized. Now, there are some scenarios where it's like, okay, you don't have a choice. This is the schedule you got for this fall. You can't replace nothing else. You out of gen ed classes. This is all you got. You got to be full time to get or to continue to get these scholarships or whatever. So there's some scenarios where it's like, okay, I don't have a choice. I got to. And that's different. But if you have a choice, if you have, the wiggle room to decide on, okay, you know what, instead of taking genetics, organic chemistry, and molecular and cellular biology, I'm gonna do genetics, organic chemistry, and do three gen ed classes. If you got the choice to do that, then do it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just gonna make life easier, and it's going to result in a higher GPA. You know what I'm saying? So just be careful with that. After this semester, I went back, looked at every class I'm taking moving forward, and readjusted my schedule to make sure that, I'm choosing my schedule wisely and I'm not overdoing it. I'm still an adult. I still have to punch a clock. I still have to work X amount of hours a week. I still got bills to pay. I still got to pay rent. So I don't have the luxury to sit at home all day, every day, 7 days a week and just focus on homework. I still have to occupy and give my time to other things. You know what I'm saying? And because of that, You know what I'm saying? I have to be careful and be mindful of picking and choosing classes. And that's all I'm saying in this video is just be careful. Because, you don't want to end up, with low GPAs, withdrawing classes, dropping classes. That's going to mess with your financial aid. You don't want to be failing classes. You just don't want to go through that, all because you added on one class too many. You know what I'm saying? Like you could have did well, but because you added this one extra class, it broke you. You know what I'm saying? And now, you got an F or a W, or you know what I'm saying? Now your financial aid's messed up, or scholarships messed up. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to go through that. So be mindful. Look at your schedule. Pay attention to the numbers. Ask questions, and think for yourself. You know what I'm saying, when you're picking these classes, and build your schedule, to that's going to give you the advantage to do the best you can as a student. And that's pretty much it. So hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope y'all learned something from it, and I'll see y'all on the next clip.